Welcome back. I'm here with my iced coffee today, and today is going to be a video about all my placements so far. I often get questions about where my placements have been and where they'll be in the future, and I think I've had a really good broad range of placements in lots of different areas. So today I'm going to be going through each placement I had and my favourite thing about them and my not so favourite thing. I want to keep it really honest with you guys so you know that they all haven't been really good and everything's been perfect on them, because that is not the case. And then we'll move on to where my third year placements will be, which literally came out 2 days ago. So I'm so excited about those. So I'll leave them till the very end of the video and we'll start from my first placement. So my first placement was on gastro and hepatology. So this was a lot of people with overdoses, and renal problems and things like that. So that was, and obviously gastro and then hepatology as well, which is liver. So that was really varied and quite unusual. Like, I haven't had anything like that since. So that was my first placement, which obviously was a bit scary because I didn't know anything then, and you were kind of chucked into this really unknown environment because it was just so different to anything I'd ever been. And some of the patients on that placement were interesting, to say the least. But it was a good placement because I think it really opened my eyes to what's out there and different types of nursing. Also, my mentor on that placement was the ward manager, so she was really busy trying to run the ward basically, so she didn't have much time for me, and that was fine. She was really nice, but she kind of, I guess, trusted me in a way for some unknown reason at that point, and kind of chucked me into the deep end and would just say, I'll show you how to do this once and then you're gonna go and do it yourself. And I'm like, okay. And at that point it's so unknown. Everything about placement, everything about nursing is so unknown, but she did make me feel that I could do it and that she had the trust in me, so she wouldn't put the trust in me if she didn't think I could do it. So that was good. But at the same time, I was like, why is she leaving me alone? So that was my first placement, and I really liked it. I actually missed 3 weeks of my first placement, so I only did 5 weeks of that placement because my DBS was sent to the wrong address and there was a whole issue, and then basically I had to get a new DBS. Long story short, that placement was really good. I think it gave me a good foundation to see what nursing was really like and to get a good exposure to different patients with different problems that I might not necessarily come across in other wards. So that was really good. My second placement was my oncology placement and cancer care, and this was, I think, still my favourite to this day, which is crazy because it was only my second placement. Oh, bear in mind, in the uni I'm in, we do 6 placements over 3 years, so this is my second placement out of 6. So this is quite a long time ago, but it still sticks in my mind as being my favourite placement. I think it's my favourite because I learnt the most. I definitely felt like I started to become a nurse then, which is crazy because I was only just finished my first placement of first year. But I guess kind of similar to the first one, I was chucked in the deep end in a bit, but I think if you want to learn and if you want to get to know how to do things by yourself, it's definitely the best way, although at the time it's terrifying. I think by the end of that placement, I was definitely comfortable with kind of your basic things like OBS, bed baths, like bladder scanners, giving meds. I think on that placement, because it was obviously a cancer care ward, we gave a lot of drugs, and I think that kind of opened my mind to lots of different drugs that I'd never heard of, and that wasn't a problem that I'd never heard of them because I was only in first year and they didn't expect me to. But once you go and look them up, then you know them forever, as long as you remember them. But obviously on that placement I saw people getting chemo, radiotherapy, chemotherapy, lots of different types, of ways to treat cancer, so that was fascinating. I think another reason why I found that placement so good was because I think going into it I thought that this is cancer care, everyone's going to be so sad and down and dying, but that's so far from the truth. I nursed people that were overcoming cancer and were in remission. I did nurse people that were dying too, but that's all part of the job, and that's all part of cancer care and what comes with it. But the majority of people were so strong-willed, determined to fight, and just really, really nice people. So I think that made the placement so much easier because you really bond with your patients. Also because the patients are there for normally quite a long time. They don't have to be, but if they're getting certain types of treatment, then they'll be there for a long period of time. So that was nice because you got to see the same patients every single day, and you got to like continue with their care. So you'd see them come in and then you'd see them get better, or see them get an operation or things like that, and then see them being discharged as well. So you got to see the full spectrum. And because patients were there for so long, it was almost sad when they left. You were obviously happy for them because they were leaving hospital, but at the same time you were like, no, I want you to stay. Yeah, I can still think of like 3 or 4 patients from that placement, which is just really nice. And I think it says a lot about that ward that I was on, because I think it just embodied what a cancer care ward should be. So yeah. Third placement was a trauma and orthopedic placement, which is an orthopedic pre and post surgery ward, which basically, it was actually an elective ward as well, which basically means that people who didn't need emergency surgery or didn't necessarily need the operations, but did in a way, needed them because it would make them more comfortable, and obviously they had an issue with normally either their knee or their hip, and they were coming in to get a total knee replacement or a total hip replacement. So they were on the elective list for quite a while. Then they would come onto this ward pre-surgery and then post-surgery, and we would look after them until they were ready to go home. This ward was interesting. I definitely learned a lot. I've never been on a ward with lots of people going to surgery so often, so that was really good because you got to treat people before, with all the fasting, and they can't have certain meds, and then when they get back doing the 15-minute obs and things like that, and when things go wrong, knowing something is going wrong. But that ward was a lot slower paced, I think, because it was elective, so everyone was quite fit and healthy apart from their issue with their knee or their hip. Well, the majority of them was with their knee or the hip, so I think there wasn't as much nursing to do, as in we obviously had to get them better from the surgery, but once they were on the mend from the surgery, they recovered really quickly because they were mostly, as I said, fit and healthy. But towards the end of that placement, there was an issue with the rest of the trauma and orthopedic ward. So we were getting a lot of, not major traumas, but people who had a trauma. So we had a man with a crush injury where something crushed his chest, things like that, which I found really, really interesting because I'd never worked at anything like that before. And obviously they were a lot sicker than the people who were just coming in for a knee or hip replacement. And yeah, it was good. Saw a lot. Wouldn't be my favourite, but definitely learnt a lot, and my mentor and everyone on that ward was really nice, so it made it easier. Placement 4 was in a place, I think I can say it now, called Urgent Response, which is basically a team in the community that responds to people in crisis. So it's basically people who are in the community who are falling quite ill but don't necessarily want to go into hospital, or if there's been a thing called a failed discharge, where basically they were in hospital and they got sent home too early and then they bounced back into hospital, we would go to their house and try and assess them there and try and keep them at home as much as possible. Obviously it wasn't always possible, but for the majority of time we got to keep them at home, and we'd get nurses to come in and see them every day, and healthcare assistants and physios and OTs to try and build them back up at home. And I think I really, really like the idea of this service, because I think it bridges the gap between people in hospital and people in a nursing home and things like that. You're getting the in-between stage. They're still in their home or in a residential like warden facility or wherever they may live, and you go and see them in their own home, and you can help them there, which I think obviously, like, that's an incredible idea, and it worked really well. The thing I learned the most from that placement was assessments. So basically every time a patient would get put on our caseload, we'd have to go out to their house and then assess them to see, firstly, how sick they are. Do they need more help than us? Do we need to call an ambulance? Do they not need our help at all? So basically the only way we can go and see patients if they've been referred to us by a healthcare professional. So they can't ring up and say, I need help, come and see me. The patients can't. We have to be like formally referred for a patient. So either by a GP or somebody in the hospital. And once they'd been referred, we'd go out and we'd assess, because sometimes the GP might have not have seen them in 2 weeks, but the patient rings them and says, I'm in agony, this and this, and the GP says, okay, I'll ring urgent response and this team will come out and see you. But the GP itself hasn't had eyes on the patient, so they don't really know what's going on. They just hear what the patient says and then go from there. So often we'd go out and see the patient, and we get there and they'd either be really, really sick and we'd have to call an ambulance because there was just nothing we could do and that was the safest option, or we'd be like, you don't need our help. So that was the kind of only problem with this system, but I think overall it worked really well, and we definitely helped so many patients not go back into hospital, because especially the elderly, when they're so used to their routine, and it's dangerous for them to go back into hospital because there's just so much risks of infection and things like that. So I think keeping them at home, comfortable in their own environment, is the best thing you can do sometimes, and sometimes it's not. But having that option there, I think, was great. And you just saw how people were so grateful to be still in their home and not, back in hospital, the place they don't like very much, which I don't blame them. So yeah, I definitely learned a lot on that placement. Assessment was the main thing. Also kind of how to act in somebody's home, which sounds so stupid, but before that placement, or on the first day of that placement, I would just be really awkward in somebody's home. Like, you don't really know where to stand, you don't know kind of how to act, because you're like, this is somebody else's home. Because normally in the hospital, it feels like the patients are coming into your place of work, or your kind of comfortable place, but in the community, you're going into their home. So it's just very different, but you get used to it. So they're my placements from first and second year, and now I'm going to talk about my third year placements. So these are the placements that I've been allocated for third year. So this is placement 5 and placement 6. So these will be my last 2 placements of my nursing degree, or nursing school, or whatever you want to call it. So about 2 days ago, we got an email saying our placements were out, and we were all very excited because this is obviously a big deal, because they're longer than the previous placements I've mentioned. So I'm just going to tell you quickly. So placement 1 until 4, the ones I've just mentioned, are all 8 weeks long. Placement 5, the one I'm going to talk about with you now, is 10 weeks, and placement 6 is 14. So I think people worry about them because they're just so long, and if you don't like the area you're in, you're there for a lot longer than you were with the 8 weeks, especially the 14. It is a long amount of time. So I'm really happy with my third year placements. So I'm going to share with you now. So my placement 5 is a theatre rotation. So I will be in a hospital on theatre rotation, going around to various different areas of theatre, and I think I spend time in recovery as well. I don't know very much about this placement because it's not until November, but it's really good I know what it is. So I think it's a theatre rotation, so I'll be going to various different theatres. So I think I go to maternity, cardiac, maybe like eye surgery, pediatrics maybe. Although I'm adult, I think I get to go to them all. And then I also get to go and visit recovery as well. So it's a rotation. So I think I'm only in each place for a week, which for 10 weeks. So hopefully I'll get to see 10 different places, which would be amazing. So I don't know really much to say about it. I'm excited, and I'm really happy the hospital that it's in because it's super close to me, and I'm really glad I'm not far away because it's 10 weeks long, so I don't want to be travelling very far every day. And the hospital it's in, I can cycle to it in 15-20 minutes, so it's really handy. And finally, my placement 6, P6, is on a MOP ward. And for anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's medicine of older people. And so this is kind of an elderly general medicine ward. So I've never been on an elderly ward of any type, so that should be interesting. I'm quite excited about having that one for P6 because in P6, by the end of P6, you need to be kind of managing the ward. So I'm quite happy I'm on a ward that I think I'll feel quite comfortable on compared to if I had A&E or if I had ICU. I think I would be less comfortable to be in charge and managing a place like that just because it's so hectic. And I'm not saying MOP won't be hectic, because I'm sure it will be in different aspects, but I think the more acutely unwell a patient is, I think it's harder to manage so many of them. So I think MOP will be a good one for managing, hopefully, and I'm really excited to just get to my placement. And yeah, they're still far away, but I just am really happy that I know about it. So these have been my 6 placements so far. So 2 I haven't done yet and 4 I have. And I hope you found this helpful for anyone who is starting placement or is on placement currently. And if you are, I hope it's going well for you. I keep seeing loads of people in their student nurse uniform around, and yeah, I feel bad for you that it's summer, but I'm sure you're having a great time. And if you're not, try and keep your head up, because things do get better and there is always a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's only a phase. It will end, and you don't have to work in that area when you're qualified because you can pick where you want to work. So that would be my advice to anyone who's on placement at the moment. So they're my 6 placements. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, give this a like and comment down below any placement questions or any uni questions you have, and also any questions you have for my upcoming Q&A, because that would be really helpful and I can answer all of them there. So thanks you for watching. Bye!